Hello, this is Grandpa Keith D. Carlson, sitting in his famous lazy boy chair. He's here a good part of the time, watching 60 Minutes, a story about China being overrun with too much building. Ashley Duncan is taking pictures. She's been showing us all afternoon pictures on Facebook. All the family and their cute little children laughing and playing, going to Disneyland, all kinds of stuff. Looks like Grandma is sitting over there on the couch folding clothes.
Yes.
She doesn't realize it's a Sabbath day. It's a day
Well,
of
I
rest.
should have folded them yesterday.
She said she should have folded them yesterday, but surely they can wait till tomorrow.
Nope, not get them. Wait.
We have had so much company this summer. Emily and her 3 children, Alexis and her 3 children, Austin and Steffi and their little Aaliyah just went home yesterday. Jill Carlson and Jill used to be Carlson, and now I have no idea how to pronounce her last name. She married some guy with a, how would you pronounce it?
I can't pronounce it.
Shevendelt or something.
Anyway, they're both landscape architects. They did a lot of work in their backyard, and they're going to plant some crepe myrtle trees out in front along where we have a little spot of land next to the driveway and the grass. That will be pretty and colorful. Pretty soon we're going to take Ashley down to Concord Martinez BART station. We're hoping we'll make all the right turns. Otherwise we'll be lost, and it'll be late getting there and it'll be late coming home. Yesterday when we came home bringing Ashley, we went to the steak center. They were having the Hmong conference. Hmongs are people from Laos. They had 300 people there. Well, our main reason to go there was to get some of their good food. And we got a plate of pulled pork, barbecue chicken, a beautiful salad made from cabbage, and had everything in it. And they had fruit, they had oranges, bananas, apples, bottled water. We came home with the food and ate till we couldn't hardly walk. Today was Fast Sunday, Testimony Sunday. Ashley got up and bore her testimony. That was a treat to hear her granddaughter up preaching to the choir in a large congregation. Were you going to ask questions?
Sure. So can you tell me about how you met Grandma?
It's a long story how I met Grandma. I had a missionary companion. His name was Ivan Wall. He always says capital I, capital V, Von Wall. And Glenda was his girlfriend before his mission. We were not missionary companions, but we were stationed in the same area and lived in the same house. He would write her letters, and she would hardly ever write back. He would storm around and say, no missionary is so busy they can't take a couple of minutes to write an old friend a letter. What is the matter with that girl? So after our mission, some way we got together and we were going to go double date. He was going to date Glenda, and he said, she has a sister named Raylene, maybe you can take her. We'll go dancing or something. So we went down into the basement apartment. As you go down the basement, you make a turn, it's like a L. So you can kind of hide if you want to, and they can't see you out the door. So he says, you go knock on her door and say, I was sent by Ivan, he couldn't make it, he wants me to entertain you this night. So she says, well, that's okay. We don't need Ivan, we'll go have fun dancing or something. So about that time he got steamy mad and he come out and said, what do you mean you'll go with Brother Carlson instead of me? So we found out that Raylene was not there, so I didn't have a date. So that's how I met Glenda. And later on, one day at BYU on a cold wintry day, snow and ice, I was coming down the steps of one of the buildings and I slipped on the ice and I threw my books in the air so I could catch myself. And when I looked up, there was Glenda staring down at me. And I says, how is Ivan? I didn't say, how are you? So, one thing another, we finally had a few places where we saw each other together. And we started dating. And school was about out. And I was from New Mexico and I was going to go down there and work with my brothers in the oil field. So Glenda talked to my Aunt Beatrice Lonis and she says, don't let that guy, he's going down to New Mexico to marry the bishop's daughter. So Glenda says, don't go, I'll get you a job. I'm a big wheel at the Geneva steel plant. I'll speak to some of the hierarchy there and see if we can't get you on as a job. So I said, okay, I won't go. And we dated and we dated and we dated. First thing I know, on June the 3rd, was it June the 6th?
6th.
June the 6th we got married. And here it is 60 years later.
62.
62 years, we have 60-year-old children. We've had our ups and downs, crossways and backwards and frontwards, but we're still taking care of each other. I have a walker, she has a walker. We're not very active anymore, but we have fun. Next question, please.
Tell me a story about Gary when he was younger.
About Gary?
Yep.
Well, Gary was our second born, and in those days, they didn't even allow the man in anywhere near where the birth was taking place. I was outside in the parking lot waiting, and finally I decided I'd better go in and see. So I went in the hospital. They're wheeling Glenda down the hallway on a gurney or something, and she had this little bundle of joy in her hands, and I said, that must be a boy. He's not near as cute as a little girl would be. Looked like a big old blob. So Gary was our firstborn. Our secondborn, our firstborn was Karen, and she was a cute little bundle of joy. But she cried a lot. And Glenda'd go pick her up and try to make her calm and happy. But sometimes she'd just cry and cry and cry. So we talked to the doctor, and he says, well, just put her down and leave the house. Go outside and let her cry. She knows that you'll just pick her up every time you cry, and she'll have to learn it. She can't get attention every time she needs it. We didn't have a bassinet. We just pulled a drawer out of one of the dressers part way and made a little crib in the dresser drawer. That was her cute little bed. So I was going to BYU, and I was enrolled in the ROTC program, which meant that I'd be commissioned at graduation as a second lieutenant and to go in the Air Force. And before I graduated, we have 3 children all the way. Karen, Charlene, and Carrie. And we're supposed to go in at graduation and graduate on the 3rd of June. But they sent me a letter and says, don't show up. We've lost all your paperwork. You're going to have to reapply, take your physical again. So we went from June clear to the next March before we got called up. Well, we bought a house while we was at BYU, and we was living there, but we sold it thinking we're going to leave. We didn't have anywhere to live, so Grandma Hunger advised us to stay there for a while. So you can imagine what that was like, being with your mother and father-in-law with 3 kids. And of course, they had a complete different philosophy on how to raise kids than we did. We thought we knew it all, and of course, they'd had experience. So after June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, after 9 months living there, when we left, we all give each other a hug and says, we forgive you. And we went to Harlingen, Texas, to go into Navigator Training School. And it was Harlingen, Texas for a year. Then I got my Navigator ratings. And we were transferred to, first assignment was to Mountain Home, Idaho, as a B-47 radar navigator. But they sent us out to Mather to go through an advanced school. That's where Julie was born, on Mather Air Force Base. So we were at Mountain Home for 9 years, where I loved flying in the B-47, got about 2,500 flying hours in that airplane. And they phased those out in 1965 or so. My initial assignment was to go into a missile silo. That didn't sound very exciting, so I pulled a few strings and got assigned to the KC-135 aerial tanker at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio, where we lived for another 8 or 9 years. So we bought a nice home there, and there we stayed. And Karen, Gary, and Charlene went to early morning seminary. That was really early morning because they had to be back home by 6:45 to get on the bus to go to school. And Charlene and Julie were members of the Flowerettes. It was a marching team for the school sports. They put on a lot of halftime activities and stuff like that. What were they called? The Fairfield Flowerettes?
Yes.
Then Julie was at church one time, and one of her friends pushed a chair cart into the back of one of her legs, and snapped her Achilles tendon. So she was never able to do that kind of stuff. So she had to drop out of the Flowerettes. So we had a nice home there. We were part of the community. I was president of the PTA for a time. Lori had a little Shetland pony, which we boarded at some friend's house. Sometimes we'd take the pony and put it in the back of our camper truck and haul it around for kids to ride at school, PTA meetings, and then they'd raise a little money by charging the kids to ride the pony. We were members of a club which they had a nice outdoor pool. All the kids like to go there and swim. And then in 1974 I got sent to Thailand for a year by myself. And while I was there, the plane I checked out in was phased out. So I still had to stay there my year. I worked in the command post, chief of the command post. Then we taken a physical there, and they said, you got a spot on your lung. So they sent me to the Clark Air Base in the Philippines. And they said, you better go have that checked out as soon as you go home. It might be cancer. So I come back to Travis with my final assignment. The doctor says, well, we'd like to operate on you, or else you can go back where your wife is, Wright Patterson. But the doctor was a real cool guy. He was a lieutenant colonel, so I thought, well, I'll get it done here, and then I'll go back to Ohio for recuperation. So what they do is they cut a big incision in your back, and then they spread your ribs with a rib spreader. They took out a section of my left lung and said it wasn't cancerous. It was called a histoplasmosis. So it's a fungus you can get if you're in Ohio or Thailand. So I've been to both those places. So then we spent a year at Travis as a squadron navigator. And then I got discharged there. We didn't plan on staying in California, but I got discharged in January. And the Air Force gives you a year to make up your mind where you want to have your household goods. So kids were all in school, and I quite liked it. We don't know whether it was a good deal or a bad deal, because we were away from our main family for years and years. Most of our family were in Utah. But the girls got married and they moved where their husbands had jobs. Gary and David stayed here, and they're both in construction. Next question.
I don't know. What else do you want to say?